You're listening to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Welcome to Links Podcast. This is the Love Your Neighbor podcast, and we have a Brandon neighbor, friend, Skyler Earley Stonearrow is with us. Skyler, welcome to Links Podcast, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. This is we bumped into each other a couple weeks ago, but you've not been back home for a couple months now.
Yep, I got home in middle of November.
Talk about you were deployed with the 1742nd South Dakota National Guard to the southern border.
Yep.
Thank you for your service. I appreciate you and all of your fellow soldiers that were deployed there protecting our country. Thank you for that. And on behalf of everybody that's listening, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And what was that like? You're a husband and a dad. You were gone for
it was
a year.
13 months that we were gone. Kind of came quickly. It was we got the phone call and 3 months later we were gone. So everything kind of had to happen quickly. I made the mistake of telling my wife immediately, who was at work. So that's a life lesson for me, is wait till she gets home, so then she doesn't have to go through the rest of her day worrying about that. So it was an interesting experience for sure to go down there. I've been kind of all over the world thanks to the Army. And it's kind of weird being so far away, but yet still home, and seeing the diversity that was coming over. We had just a little bit of the border, and basically we were under what's called Title 10 orders, so we couldn't do law enforcement activities. It's actually illegal for us to do law enforcement activities unless granted by the Pentagon. So we were just observe and report.
Oh, wow.
So that was what we did for 13 months, is watch them climb the wall, come over, and tell Border Patrol about them.
So you're really out there kind of as a recon function of just taking notes and observing?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that, now tell us a little bit about your military service. What's that been like? You said you've been all over the world.
Yep. So we've been with a transportation company. We do a lot of driving. Been all over the United States. Actually, did a long haul right when COVID happened. So when everything's shutting down, we were driving around the country. Almost got shut down mid-drive without a way home. Fortunately, our leadership kind of fought that and said, we're coming home. But I've been to the Middle East. I've been to Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan, Romania. I've been to Ireland, Germany, Belgium, and Canada.
Dude, you don't look old enough to be able to have been all those places.
I get that a lot. I'm starting to look my age. I've always looked a little younger than I actually am, but I'm starting to finally hit that spot where I'm starting to look a little older finally. I am 31. Okay. And yeah.
Well, so you're getting up there.
I'm starting to.
Yeah.
I found about 6 gray hairs in my brush a couple weeks ago, so I'm right on your heels.
Yeah. Well, you got a ways. You won't catch up with me. This guy. That's awesome. But yeah. So so is that right out of high school then you joined?
I was still in high school.
Okay.
Yep. I joined when I was 17 years old. Asked my mom and said, hey, I really want to do this. Can you sign the permission slip? She goes, well, it's either now or you're going to do it next year, so I might as well just do it now. So I joined too late in the summer to go to basic training, so you can go to basic training between junior and senior year, then go back for your senior year, and then the next summer you go to your advanced training. Well, I didn't list it too late because I turned 17 too late, so I just put on a delayed entry for almost a year. So I went to drills. It was called the Recruit Sustainment Program, just like a little pre-basic training is what I consider it. Drill every month. Go and do a lot of push-ups. Then you learn like the ranks and the songs and creeds and all that stuff. So it really helps you before you get to basic training. So, the guys are staying up till midnight trying to cram this information in.
Gotcha.
I'm good to go because I've been on it for so long.
So growing up, you mentioned high school. Then where was that you went to high school before you ended up in Brandon?
I went to Flandreau High School.
Okay.
So I grew up in Flandreau pretty much my whole life. I went to Sioux Falls for a couple of years, Harrisburg my sophomore year, but other than that, it was all in Flandreau.
Yeah. And so you moved to you're employed currently. You work for the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And you're a patrol officer.
Yep.
You work. What kind of hours? What's that like? I mean, you're in the military, law enforcement. I mean, tell us a little bit about the a week in the life of what's your rank? What do you in the county sheriffs? You're
I'm just a deputy.
Deputy sheriff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What's a week in the life of deputy sheriff?
It's the fun part of that job is there isn't a typical day. So I did my entire career so far on nights. This year is the first year I've been on days.
Okay.
Because the wife told me I'm going to days. So before that, it was always nights, and that's what I loved. I loved working night shift because that's when the fun happens. That's when you play the cat and mouse games. People are out usually at that time of night doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing, trying to get away from you. You're trying to catch them. Whereas day shift, it's my neighbor's shoveling part of my lawn and I don't like it, kind of thing.
Sure. Gotcha.
So there's a lot of different avenues that you have to go on days. But there's a lot more. You have more time to go and serve like civil papers. As a sheriff's office, we're the ones that serve civil papers, and we can go into Sioux Falls and try to find warrant subjects and that kind of thing. So you have more time to do those things, and you're in normal walking people hours. So,
how many hours of your shift how many hours do you spend in your car driving around Minnehaha County?
On a slow day, the entire shift, we work 12-hour shifts. If there's nothing going on, sometimes I just get out to get out.
Okay.
But then there's times where you're out for hours at a time on even a single call, or you do a call, hop in your car, and immediately you're going to another one. So it just depends on if it's a full moon or not, really.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but I just have to, a lot of the folks that I get to meet on the Links podcast, I'm meeting for the first time, and I've had the privilege of meeting you. We got to share a meal together because we had a mutual friend, and then interestingly enough, your brother was in my third grade class way back in the day when I first taught, and the reason that's significant is because almost 2 years ago, I was driving down 229 right underneath the 6th Street overpass. And as I was, coming out of Brandon and I turned onto the interstate, it was going up that, that hill, before 12th. And there's that bridge on 6th Street with no exit. And as I was cresting the hill, I could see that there was someone on the fence. And wasn't sure exactly what was happening, but I noticed there was a lot of people surrounding this person. And as I drove under the bridge, I saw a person that was hanging suspended from the bridge over the interstate. And I'm all by myself. I'm going to one of my kids' activities, and I drove underneath this person who was literally hanging over the road. And you don't see that every day. And it was an active situation. Obviously, a lot of things were going on. I noticed there was a lot of people there, and I just drove through that. And I, of course, checked, the papers the next day to get more information. I did not even think about stopping, and I didn't hear anything. And then about 2 weeks later, my student, he and I are friends on social media. He posted your picture and say, "Way to go, bro. I'm so proud of you." And your name was on there for being a part and receiving an award. I don't remember the name of it. What was the name of the award that you received?
It was a life-saving award.
Life-saving award. You were there, and as I drove underneath her, you were literally holding that young lady from jumping. And when I put the connected the dots. I reached out to Billy, and we made the connection, and I was just blown away by the story and, of course, your role in that. Would you kind of share with our listeners how that day went? Because you weren't working that day.
No.
That was an off day for you.
Well, I was working that day, but it was the night shift.
Okay.
So I was coming into town to go to grand jury. So I just drive in, give a testimony for a couple minutes, and I go home, get a little bit more sleep, and then I go in for my shift. So I'm driving down on 6th Street 'cause that's just my way I go to work. And I was coming down that hill towards Cleveland. And I saw a bunch of cars parked on the side of the road. I was like, oh, must be an accident going on. Glad I'm not working. And as I I slowed down a little bit because I wanted to make sure no one tried darting through. And I kind of looked over and I was like, there's a lot of people right there on the fence line. So I kind of got right next to him and I saw there was somebody on the other side of that fence line. It's like, oh, that's not good. They got enough people. They don't need me. I need to go to grand jury anyway. For some reason I said, yep, what's an extra set of hands going to hurt? I'll just see if they need something. If they don't, I'll head to grand jury. So I stopped thinking they had the situation under control and got out. And there was one person actively cutting the fence with the pliers. Just one click at a time, trying to do what he could. Everyone else was just standing there talking to her, trying to not get her to jump. So nothing was actually being accomplished yet. One guy said, hey, I have a ratchet strap. I'm going to go grab it. So he went to his truck, grabbed a ratchet strap, came back, and by then there's just a little bitty hole about that big in the fence. And he put the ratchet strap through that hole and tried to like swing it across her body. And there was two of us on the other side, but our hands were too big to fit through the fence, so we couldn't grab it. So then we were trying to think of how to get this ratchet strap around her. And I happened to look down and I noticed that the fence wasn't like connected to the ground. So I just grabbed to test it and I was able to move the bottom of the fence. The other guy saw that, grabbed and just yanked it up. And I was able to reach under there, and as he swung that ratchet strap, I was able to grab it and feed it through the link. So then we're able to grab that. So then I grabbed both sides of the ratchet strap and just kind of leaned back a little bit. And then I had one guy on this side of me that was helping with this side, and one guy on this side helping with that side. So we had 3 people holding this ratchet strap. And at the time, she was still sitting on the cement part of the bridge. So we didn't have a lot of weight on it, but we had just enough. And while we're doing that, that guy just kept cutting the fence, just cutting the fence. And there was a bunch of women there who were talking to her, trying to de-escalate the situation, right?
Was she pretty coherent, or was she upset, or what was her?
She was in hysteria. She was crying, screaming. She don't want to be there anymore. The women that are on my side of the fence just kept telling her, it's not worth it. Don't do it. This and that. And at this point, Sioux Falls PD hadn't arrived yet, so they were still coming. I could hear sirens in the background. So the only thing I was thinking of really was my hands are cold. It was a cold day out there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have gloves on. I was like, oh man, my hands are cold, but I can't let go, because if I do, then she's not going to worry about being cold if she falls. So me and the 3 guys just kept holding on to that. And that one guy just kept cutting the fence. And then Sioux Falls PD arrived, and they actually brought bolt cutters. So then they just started slamming those links, trying to get that thing opened up. And I don't know if she heard that or if she just decided now was her time, but then she leapt. And we felt her weight shift, so we just pulled with all of our weight. All 3 of us just leaned back as hard as we could, and we basically pinned her to the bridge. So there's nothing under her. Just the ratchet strap pulling her towards the bridge. And Sioux Falls PD said that, and they said, we need to get her now. So they just grabbed the fence. They basically just ripped it. And then 2 of them grabbed her and just ripped her through the hole they had made. And I looked at one of them because I knew him from, I think it was Academy. He was one of the instructors at Academy for like an adjunct instructor. And they had her on the other side. I was like, hey, I have to go to grand jury. Let me know if you need something. And then I left.
So did he get a hold of you later with a result, or did he follow up with you at all?
No,
or?
they didn't need any follow-up from me. The follow-up I had was I went home, and then because I had actually called the state's attorneys on my way, said, hey, I'm going to be late.
Mm-hmm.
There was a jumper off the bridge. I stopped to try and help. I'm on my way. He said, okay, no problem. And then I went to work that night, and my sergeant held me back after shift brief, let the other guys go. He goes, hey, I want to talk to you. So, okay. Mm-hmm. I hadn't told anybody about this. Mm-hmm. And he goes, so what happened today? What do you mean? I went to grand jury. Mm-hmm. Well, he's with somebody on the Sioux Falls PD. He goes, she was there. She saw you. She told me. I know. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh. So then I kind of told him the story. And then he's actually the one that's responsible for me getting the award because he's then passed it up the chain of command. Skyler was here on this incident. Didn't even tell anybody about it. I just happened to know about it because Sioux Falls PD. So,
well, I can't tell you what a moment that was for me, and as I've come to know the story, it's one of those stories of a lot of things are happening, but the thing I think is relevant to our listeners today is everybody's got something going on, mm-hmm. and you have kids, I have kids, and it can be a difficult world. And this girl, she was young, and to have people there that cared enough, not only you but the others and the women that were there to talk with her, and the police department, and that community of people that came around her in that moment and allowed her to have some better days, and it absolutely wrecked me for several months, and I just want to thank you for your service personally, and because we all have stories, we all have stories. You have a story too, and I really admire you, and I admire your courage, and you're just a guy that I think when I think of Brandon, I think of you, Skyler. You, not a lot of people probably know you, but the people that do can really appreciate who you are and your character. And you're in the military, and you've got a ponytail.
Yep.
We need to hear that story too, because that's not normal.
Right. It sure isn't. So about my 10-year, so I've been in the Guard for 14 years, and I was approaching my 10-year mark and said, I'm done. I'm ready to get out. I've done my time. I've done my deployment. I'm ready to get out. And then we kind of started crunching numbers, and it's good health insurance. It's a lot of money we're losing out on. All right, I'll stay in. So I went to my readiness sergeant and said, hey, I want to re-enlist, but I have one condition. He said, okay, what's that? I said, I want to start growing my hair out. Because at that time, that's when religious accommodation started becoming a thing. We started seeing Sikhs wear turbans and beards and stuff like that. So I want to try to do that. He said, you got my full support. So I signed my re-enlistment papers, and I started the religious accommodation process. And in order to do that, I have to write a letter to my commander saying, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. Hard part is, usually they need some kind of proof. So I'm not just, blowing smoke at them. Mm-hmm. Well, my culture is mostly oral tradition. So we don't have textbooks dating back to, 1754. It's all the stories that we've been told, stories we've been told growing up, the stories I'm still hearing today. So I reached out to one of my buddies back home and said, hey, is there anything you can do to help me with this? He said, let me make a phone call. So he reached out to the Historic Preservation Society, and they wrote me a 2-page recommendation saying this is what our culture believes in. I believe he should be able to do it. So we sent it in and sent it up to I got my command's approval. They sent it up to the state, and the state sent it off to the Pentagon, the National Guard Bureau. And that was, I want to say, March time frame. And then, so when I was in when I was cutting my hair, I was always cutting it on Thursday, right before drill. That way I'm not waiting to the last minute on Friday, but I'm also making sure I'm going to be in regulation. There's no way I'm going to be out of regulation if I get a cut 2 days prior. Mm-hmm. So it was a Wednesday night, and my commander calls me and goes, "Hey, congratulations, your accommodation has been approved." Wow, that was pretty close. So I started growing my hair out, and I don't know if you've ever grown your hair out, but there's an awkward stage between short hair and what I have.
Yeah.
And I can't put it in a ponytail. It just looks like a complete mess. So there was a few months where I had to get through that. And it was like, come on, man. Did you forget a haircut? Yes, I forgot a haircut.
Well, you got to buy different shampoos and stuff.
We go through so much shampoo and conditioner now. Our poor drains, because I have long hair. My wife has long hair. Okay. My daughters have long hair. My youngest son has long hair. Like, there's just a lot of hair for those drains right now.
Yeah. Well, talk about your culture and talk about it, because it's more than just a fashion statement. I mean, there's deep spiritual, there's deep relational family meaning to that. Talk about what that is. You do a beautiful job of articulating that.
So the way I've been taught was that our hair is our identity. When we're born, nothing that we have is ours. The only thing that we have that's ours is our body and our hair. Everything else, the clothes that we wear, the food that we eat, the house that I live in, is all a gift. The spirits give us gifts, and we thank them and try to do what we can to show our appreciation for that. But our hair is the only thing that we have. So as it grows longer towards the ground to connect us back with our roots. It's a symbol of our strength and our unity. You know, hair itself is weak, but you braid it together, it becomes a pretty strong bond, showing, you know, the tribe, we have to work together to survive. And they say that as we grow and time goes on, our memories get intertwined with our hair. So then when a loved one that means a lot to us passes away, we'll cut our hair and we'll bury it with them, so they can go to the next journey with our memories in tow. Now, with that being said, all families have a little bit of a different belief. Every tribe has a different belief. That's just from my family.
Who was it that passed that on to you? Was it your mother? Who was it that passed on those?
So I actually didn't grow up with the culture. I grew up in Flandreau, and my friends were, knew the culture, but I didn't. I was raised by my single mom who was white, just on the reservation. So she didn't really know the culture. I kind of had a little bit of an idea from my friends growing up, but it wasn't until I reconnected with my uncle who was in California. He's the one that really kind of took me under a little bit. This is our family's teachings, did some ceremonies, showed me what to do. And unfortunately, me and that uncle had a falling out some years ago, so I haven't spoken to him for a while. But in the meantime, some of those friends from back home I've reached out to, and they've really kind of taught me a lot. And some other ceremonies I've been to. We do this thing weekly with some of the guys down there. We'll just get on Zoom and talk. And well, he talks, I listen.
Okay.
And that's kind of where a lot of my stuff comes from. We'll just call each other. So he'll give me some stories, some teachings, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, because I need that knowledge to pass on to my children.
So and I'm a little bit familiar with some, and there's variations, but so are you in the process of becoming an elder or a spiritual leader in your culture?
Nope. Okay. So anybody who says they're becoming a spiritual leader, those are the ones you need to watch out for.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen in the news, I believe his name was Nathan Chasing His Horse, something along those lines. He was one of those spiritual leaders, and he's been arrested in Nevada for sex abuse crimes, basically starting a cult. If you see people saying, I'm a medicine man, give me $100, you can come into my sweat lodge. Those are the kinds of people that you need to stay away from, because there's more than just our culture and our belief, and we're aware of that. And other people can try to infiltrate us and try to harm us spiritually. So we we have that understanding that we need to be careful of who we talk to. Like I said, any self-proclaimed spiritual leader or medicine man is probably somebody that you don't want to be hanging around with. We know who our actual spiritual leaders are, and they don't go around bragging about it.
Sure.
They don't go around with all their stuff in their back seat so you see it.
Right.
I am not even close to being an elder or a spiritual leader of any sort. I'm just a common man. Ikje Wachasha.
Say that again.
Ikje Wachasha. It's
Ikje Wachasha.
Ikje is like Ikje Wachasha. So in our language, there's no literal translations. Everything has a deeper meaning. So when I say that, that's trying my best to roughly translate. It's the common man. It's just your everyday individual. That's how I have always seen myself.
Yeah. That's the trait of humility and the attitude of giving others priority over yourself, and that value, crosses, our spiritual traditions, and I see that in you. Our tradition that we have in a Christian tradition says that no greater love has any man than he would give his life for a friend. And when I read scripture, our scriptures are very, very broadly available. In many cases, similar to you, they get misused sometimes. But the First Nations version of the Bible that I've come to know is such a cool way of taking the scriptures, Christian scriptures, and placing them in native spiritual terms. And I've appreciated that, because there's so many things when I see your life, and we would call that a testimony. A testimony is just what you would do in court, right?
Right.
But there's people all around us every day that are watching and making judgments based on our actions. And all I know you by, Skyler, is what you've done. And I'm just really proud to say that I know you, and we're neighbors in Brandon, and just want to wish you the best and thank you for coming on and just sharing beautifully from your experience and your story, and you're a hero, man. You're say it again.
Ikje Wachasha.
Ikje Wachacha.
Ikje
Wachasha.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you are, man. And I appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing me on and having a little chat with me.
Absolutely. We'll have to have you back again sometime, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. The purpose of the Love Your Neighbor podcast is to build community one conversation at a time. You can help us build that community by sharing the podcast on your social media channels and rating our podcast on whatever platform you're listening from. Another way is to let us know of any neighbors who have a story. Go Lynx!